Hoi hoi! 2023-2024 content is coming at you hard and fast now. There are plenty of content creators out there on the Twitter sphere, in YouTube, all other social platforms, I'm sure, that are going to start giving you their horses to follow, their anti-post tips. And as we got the season kicking off in October properly, we're going to start getting weekly tips and selections from people left, right, and centre. I, for one, cannot wait for Jumps Racing to resume. I'm excited to be pushing out some content for you guys as well. I'm going to be doing the Ranting and Racing piece with Jamie every Monday. We're going to go live at 9 o'clock. So that starts from tomorrow. So please make sure you're subscribed. You get notified when we have gone live. And please do interact with that sort of stuff as well. There's an email address you can send in your voice notes if you want to rant or just a message. If you go on Twitter, there's a Ranting and Racing page as well now. So you can send messages to that page or voice notes into there. And then we'll do a few prize giveaways and whatnot. But that's going to be a good little episode. But that's not the point of this, right? AntePost Insight, something that I've done for a long time. I think it is a valuable piece, right? It's good for me to be able to talk about it, and it's good for you guys, I think, to listen to someone that's been doing this for quite a while now. Obviously, the game's changed a little bit more recently with affordability checks, people being able to get on with accounts, and possibly the way the markets are priced up. We'll come on that as we talk through this episode and many more. But yeah, no real structure to episode one. I'll be honest with you, probably more than anything, right? It's going to be the entry point of looking at a few markets towards Cheltenham. I'll try and cover as many as I can, but want to keep it short and sweet. I'm also going to talk about a few horses that people have been putting up, my take on those, which will be encompassed as we go through some races. And then the key thing, I guess, from this is you guys dropping your comments below of horses that you're interested in, things you disagree with me, right? Because I feel like I need a disclaimer at the start of these videos. Nothing is meant as a personal attack to someone or anybody out there. And I will apologize in advance if I do make anybody feel that way, right? Horse racing, especially gambling, is a game of opinions. That is literally the whole purpose of it. I think something's got a chance, someone else doesn't. They're giving me a price that I believe is too good to be true, vice versa. And it doesn't happen if we all agree, right? We can't all be aligned. And then it is a case of just where do you think your edge is, or where do you think you're better than someone else? And then backing off the back of that. So this season, I will hopefully be doing some more stuff with Gigi. You'll have seen that I've been on the weekend watch doing some flat stuff. I have been recording a profit and loss for them on the side, which I'm going to start publishing very soon. And I'm going to be doing a profit and loss for everything that I suggest and all of the content through these videos as the season goes on. I'm going to need to figure out exactly how I'm going to do that to make it clear for everyone. But you know, I tell you guys what I'm staking, right? And I'm happy to show you my actual bet slips. I know there's people out there that are just saying you never got that price or you never had that much on it. It's easy to say it in a video. I agree. It's easy just to say it in a video. And I also don't think it's really very fair for people to be putting up selections or suggesting things and not telling you how much they've staked, right? There's a whole layer of where it could be. But the transparency for me starts by saying, if I fancy something, I am going to have X amount of money on it. And just because I might sound really bullish on one occasion, you might be led to think he really fancies this and you have more on. Whereas if I'm telling you what I'm staking, you'll see, as much as I made a strong case for it, why I'm only having this much on, or why am I having more on this than something else. And it could be price related. It's going to be all different things like that. I mean, it's mostly price related, but we'll come on to that as we go, right? And I want this to be sort of like a forum where you guys ask me what I'm doing. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I know I'm far from that. I do make a bit of money out of punting. A couple of live things that have happened with me as well this season. So I've been told about redundancy since last September. Still haven't officially been put at risk. So it's been a year in the waiting for that. But I am expecting to be made redundant at the end of this year. I will be focusing solely on horse racing. So punting, I mean grounds as well, but punting and then doing a bit of content creation as well on the side. I'll have obviously a redundancy payout. I've been doing all right through the punting side. You'll have seen that from some shorts that I put through. But again, I'll do some stuff on this as the season goes on to talk a little bit more into it. Went for a bit of a crappy personal time in February, which has been going on for a period of time. Genuinely one of those like life things that having the distraction of Cheltenham and you guys in there, having some support from some like close people as well, especially like in the horse racing world. Don't know how I would have got through it without that stuff. So I'm not doing this for a poor little me type scenario, but we've all got crap going on, right? And as much as National Hunt Racing, people will say it's not all about Cheltenham. Of course it isn't. For me, it's a big, big part of my life, and it is a nice thing to focus on in certain times. Anyway, enough of that waffling. I thought I was going to try and keep it concise. I will just share the screen now so I can show you guys what we'll be doing on there. I'll be grabbing my phone as well to be looking at bits and pieces on there. As I say, I want to try and keep it short, get you guys to interact with it as well. We've got the whole season, right? You know how excited I get about things. We've got the whole season to get excited and to cover every single race and to look at every single market. So we will just weasel our way through as much as we can. The reason I've brought Betfair up on the side as well is I'll primarily be using Betfair Exchange to bet. And again, primarily the method of betting will be to Betfair SP. So there's going to be a bank that's in there, which is already sat waiting. I'm having a couple of bets on the dogs and stuff in between, but I'll be starting with like £1,000 bank for the purpose of betting for the channel and doing a profit and loss so you guys can see what's going on. And I do think it's beneficial to be consistent with this sort of stuff as well, right? So there's only so much liquidity in the exchanges, but if you're betting for a bookmaker, you then need to have the substance in there to be able to lay. That's not really the way that a lot of people want to bet this. A lot of people want to bet with accounts and then get stuck into them. So not necessarily advising on AntePost bets as yet, or maybe I will be, but I'm just showing you there, right? We'll go through once checker, but I will refer to the exchange as much as possible because I will be having bets with the bookies. I'll be going into a few shops this year. There's actually one quite close to me that I'm going to try and record because they don't want me to put bets on it anymore, and literally it's hilarious. So I'm going to see if I can get some of that sort of content out as well. But yeah, like it's all well and good looking at odds checker and top prices and those type of things to quote them out, but like I want to be doing it for the general public, right? I want to say to you what's actually available and then prices on there compared to the exchanges, how that can give you some clues. Anyway, waffling, it's not taken me long to start doing that. A few horses that people are putting up as like ones to watch and things like that. I'm going to come on those come on those. I'm not. That is not what this show is about. It's not a bestiality channel just yet. I'm going to talk about a few horses that are being mentioned, right? Whether they pop up in this video or not, I'm not 100% sure. But the 4 that I've got on the list at the minute is Dysart Enos for Fergal O'Brien, Will Mount, that's gone to Nicky Henderson, Hillcrest, who obviously now is out for the season, and then Gentong Enki. Gentong Enki, the reason I mentioned that, I'll just do it at the top of the show, runs tomorrow down Patrick, I think it is, or Roscommon somewhere, in a maiden hurdle, right? Lots of people talk about the point, how good the performance was. I think the point-to-point recruits Jodie Stanley said it could be like a champion bumper horse. It's going straight in a hurdle, right? So, again, like not saying that she didn't know, but it's fluff, right? When people talk about this stuff, no one really knows the definite targets from the beginning. And that's, again, not a criticism against that person. But when we talk about where people are saying, oh, this could be a champion bumper type horse, the reference is probably more made in terms of the ability as opposed to that's what they think the target will be. Anywho, opened up 6-4. It's running against 116 rated horse, so 116. And it opened up at 15-8, and I say it only. It's been backed into 5-4 even money. If there are people seriously thinking this horse is going to be a potential Cheltenham-worthy conversationalist, right? Even his names are coming up in those conversations. He'll be trouncing a 116 rated horse, right? Beat that fairly comfortably, makes him a 130 horse at best on his first debut. You've got to progress a lot more than that to be a champion horse, a Cheltenham horse. So the reason I'm bringing that up again in an early perspective is we are starting to see the season commence now, right? There will be these talking horses that people talk about. They are not all going to win at Cheltenham, but lots of them can prove to potentially be bets as the season goes on. So again, the waffling point of this is a horse like that, Gentong Enki, when it opens 2-1 for a maiden hurdle where the top rated horse and next in the betting is 116 rated, you've got to be thinking about backing these ones because A, they're going to get back because people are talking about them, decent point performance, and I think it was a reasonable store sale of, I think, 48,000 euros. But it's going to be one of those that is going to be supported regardless, whatever the result is. And again, from a value betting perspective, you want to be getting in those ones. And again, from an exchange perspective, if you're able to bet them at big price, not that there's much liquidity the night before, but it's just basically just some of these horses that are mentioned, right? Just because they're mentioned, don't worry about them just for Cheltenham. Like, get stuck into a few of these as the season goes on. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to waffle. I am waffling. The Hillcrest bit, the only reason I want to mention him is because someone mentioned it in a bet thing when I was talking about the free bet, which I'll announce tomorrow on Rant and Racing. It's a classic example where everyone says, oh, he's such a lovely big horse. He's going to make a great chase. Look how big he is. Like it's a positive, right? Horses, any athlete has evolved to be the perfect size, right? You get it with greyhounds. You can get dogs that might run at 24 kilos. You get dogs that run at 40 kilos. There is potentially going to be a sweet spot somewhere in between there. And just because you've got a nice big chaser of a horse, it's not the norm, right? If a horse looks abnormal, then it's not technically in the mold or something. And again, that's not to poo-poo anything or to say that no one thought this horse could be good or anything like that. I'm just saying, be careful with what people are saying and take it, right? All this content that goes out there, all these people's opinions, take it all in, right? Listen to it, because people will say those things. They'll make a case for a horse because they think, look at the size of this horse and his point to point. Look at the field that he beat, all that sort of stuff. That will be their reasoning behind it. It's your job, really, as someone that's analysing this sort of stuff and forming your own opinion to say, oh, yeah, I think that is fair, or I don't think that's fair, or to start thinking, hang on a minute, if you're all just saying it off the back of one line of form and it's not based on what he's done or the size of the horse or targets or what trainers have said, like there's enough different opinions and different reasons we could fancy something that needs to pull it in. Anyway, I've been screen sharing for about an hour now, haven't I? And we've not really talked about anything. Let's just crack through them, right? Again, it's not really plotted, it's not really formatted. I don't really know exactly how to do this, but 10 minutes in, let's just try and crack on with a few of the markets, right? I'm just going to leave it as the odds checker view we've got in here. I will skim over to Betfair when we need to look at prices. But Supreme Novices Hurdle is going to be a race that everyone wants to get stuck into from content creators' perspective. This is the one. Supreme gets the most views. It's the most anticipated race because it's the start of the Cheltenham Festival. Again, I've already touched on a mention of a horse, Dysart Enos. How on earth? No disrespect again to the trainer or anything like that, but how on earth is a Grade 2 winning bumper mare at Aintree 20-1 for the Supreme Novices Hurdle? Disgusting. And I say this from a place of love, right? We're talking about the fact that prices can be ridiculously short anti-post now. It's bad, right? And you can't blame the bookmakers. They're able to see this content. They know the hype horses. They know the hype trainers. They know the ones that are going to attract people. But things like that are going to really start to wind me up this year. Look, a dream to share. There'll be a lot of talk about breeding this season because there's lots in there. Like Marine National technically isn't bred for a fence, but jumped well in his point, had loads of experience before his point, jumped lovely, decent hurdler. So it's there. A dream to share, again, probably not really bred to be jumping, but who knows? There's lots of horses that come from all sorts of breeding parts of it. I did manage to speak to someone in Bloodstock and a breeder just to ask a bit more information about a few recruits this season and a bit of an insider information for that sort of stuff. So to do with the breeding and whether how much of an influence it has. And he says ultimately, like, you could have the worst sire and the worst dam, and they can produce the best racehorse. You could have the best, and they can produce the worst. Like, it only takes you so far. Once they start racing, just basically try and judge as much as you can on that. And it even comes down to, like, we know potentially there are some sires that will help us with go independencies or longevity. Doyen's be one I'll talk about with Captain Teague. But there are bits like, and Scorpions, we know, like a little bit nutty and that sort of stuff. There are things that do hang on in there, but you really want to be trusting what the horses are doing out there. Anywho, a dream to share, real good in the bumper, wasn't he? And then real good at Punchtown as well. Can't make head nor tail of him myself, to be honest with you. I would not want to be backing him anywhere near single figures for a Supreme, let alone at 9-2. Tully Hill, it's good to see the breeders from them, like Shane's Hill, Bells, all of them. I think that's from the same like breeding facilities. But Tully looks like a really nice horse. Was second to a dream to share, I think, at Punchtown. I'm saying I think. I've loosely been looking at stuff and my head's all over the shop. Ballyburn, probably according to exchange, is going to be an Albert Bartlett type horse. But again, we know what it's like this time of year, right? They're all just going to be short of the stuff that's in there. I don't have an inkling on the novice ranks as it stands at the moment. And I think as time goes on, right, we'll look at the Supreme last year. Marine National was a price for a while. Like, I know at the beginning of the season, a few people would have put up at 25s, but they were split whether he was going to go Supreme or Ballymore. You're then looking at back and saying at 12-1 anti-post, but that's fine. You bet them any race, all those types of things. But I think it's like sitting and waiting this time of year is much more beneficial for it. We'll just move on. Arkle chase. Obviously, Constitution Hill is not chasing. Never going to happen as far as I was concerned. And I get that that's potentially it's the epitome of a racehorse, especially in national hunt racing, to be a really good chaser, but is what it is, right? Marine National, we've loosely touched on him there. He isn't bred for fences. He was very, I would say, he was very forward for his point. Some of the stuff that I've been told about how much he jumped before his point, that's going to potentially be some sort of help for him as a hurdler. And obviously when he goes chasing, like, he's already got that experience in there. But I don't know with Marine National, right? I think he was 150 rated when he won at Cheltenham. The stats that will go out there from Hacked Up Horse Racing, but which is good. The 75% of the ones that won a Supreme that went and won or tried to go and win an Arkle did. Champagne Fever was the one that got beat. Champagne Fever was 148, I think. The other ones were like 153 plus. It's like Duvan did it, didn't he? We got Alto that did it, Shishkim, but we just got like it's just filthy horses. So he's a bit on the cusp. I was really impressed with how Marine National actually won the Supreme, and the fact that he had that long break. He looked plenty keen enough early on as well. So I don't know with him. I'm not, again, the price that he is for the Arkle is vile. And Facile Vega, like, is a big bit of a horse, to be fair. He doesn't really look like the size of his mum. I think that Facile Vega will improve further over fences than Marine National will. And as we saw at Cheltenham, like, Marine National had his measure, in fairness, didn't he? So Facile Vega has got to catch up. I believe that Facile Vega can and probably will catch up. We'll just have to see how it goes in the season, won't we? AntePost champion hurdling, Stateman champion hurdling, apparently. It's going to be a fiddly little division, isn't it? But we came to it last year, like John Bon, El Fabiola were the favourites at the start of it. They ended up being the same there as well. So it's just a market just to leave alone for the time being. And I'd rather smash into something at 6-4 on the day, knowing what we know, or even shorter, than trying to take a speculative punt now. Because I think it's fair to say Marine National was entitled to be a bit further forward than Facile Vega over hurdles, I think. And again, from school and all that sort of stuff, I think they'll catch each other up, or if not surpass. So we will go with that. Champion hurdle, again, bit of a non-event. Constitution Hill will win. I can't believe people are saying that AntePost will be better than him. He was obviously a very emphatic and decent winner of the Ballymore, but built to be a chaser, and this is like a stepping stone to then going over fences. It's not like with Constitution Hill where they're like, here's an out-and-out chaser, we need to go over fences. I'm a bit meh about that, and the price perspective as well is a little bit shit in it. So just leave it all alone, basically, that race for the first one. Mares Hurdle, again, it's another one that from this far out, you probably just want to sit tight for a little bit. Lossiemouth should progress and should turn into something absolutely worldly, but we have seen it in the past where juveniles don't necessarily do that. We've also seen it with the likes of like an Apples Jade, that they do go and do that, or a Deafy. So we just need to find out a little bit more. Love Envoy had that cannon bone fracture. I've never really warmed to this horse. Obviously, the news of Epitant being in foal and retiring today's come out, so not that she would be winning the Mares Hurdle, but who knows where some of these horses are going. There's some nice types in there. It's a good-looking race with Gala Marceau in there, Echoes in Rain, Astro Diamond. Leave it till nearer the time, right? We've got a price on, I didn't, but people got a price on Honeysuckle on the day. Like, you would never have thought that. Looking back now, handicaps, there's no point getting stuck into. National Hunt Chase, Salvador Ziggy, loads of Potemps fans from last year. You see all the lines in there, like one with Galvin. Who was the one last year? Can't remember the top of my head. But anyway, there's always this type of horse. He'll go to October, he'll do whatever he needs to do and that sort of stuff. But I don't feel like he's the one to get excited about. But he's the type of one, right? When I was doing my AntePost books, I'd have him in the book. 12-20 was a couple of weeks ago. Might have been a bit bigger than that, say a couple of weeks, like maybe a couple of months ago. But you get them in the book, right, when they're this price, because they are the obvious shorter. Chemical Energy was the one last year, but then Chemical Energy was still a bit of a price near the time because Willie spent one out there. So who knows? I'm not interested in that. Boodle's no point ever looking at that, is there? So I've obviously touched on the first day there. I reckon we can get through all four of these as we skim through. I'll have a quick flick through the exchanges after just to see what markets might be suggesting on there. Do you know what, bollocks? Let's do it. Let's go straight in there now, because if I decide to cut this short and we decide to just look at it day by day, then we'll do it a bit different, right? So again, like I'm saying, like there will be a big difference. I said big difference. There will be a difference in what's going on. What you want to be looking for on the exchanges, right, is you want to see people that want to back stuff, and then you want to start looking into it and say, why do they want to back it? Doesn't mean they're going to go and win a race, but you get ones like this, like Captain Teague, for example. I mean, a potential obvious one that people are talking about as a horse. I said I was going to touch on about him being doyen and stuff like that. Like, so like doyens don't really have longevity. I did do a piece of work on it, which I'll share. There's loads of horses. Like Valdez was one for Alan King that looked like it's going to be an absolute world. There's more than just that. Like, this is a poor point to try and bring it up probably, but they don't have the longevity in them, right? So 6 or 7 is probably like the end of their tether. They may have issues. They may look like they're going to carry on doing stuff, but they just don't really continue to train on, like all doyens, as far as I'm concerned, like that. And again, the bloodstock person I spoke to reiterated this with me as well. So it's not a concern for Captain Teague while he's hurdling, right? But I would just think for forward thinking. We know Nichols improves a horse for fence. They're looking like a long-term type chaser stuff. This wouldn't be so much like your Hermes Allen or your Brave Man's Games, where if they falter over hurdles, let's expect them to be worldies over fences. I think Nichols would know that too, and like his time to get him is as a novice hurdler, which is why he was a bit more forward for a bumper. So we'll see about him. Almost a moot point me bringing that sort of stuff up. But again, when there's money behind stuff, if it's not someone you've had on your radar, have a look at them and just start getting a bit of an affiliation with what these horses are. When you start looking at the back form, it starts to tie in, makes it all worthwhile. The Arkle, like I said there, the 3-1 Marine National that was popped up, like you can look on it, like people are wanting to back him at 5-2. The reason the 3-1 that shows up on Oddschecker, it's again probably with Fool's prices now, Constitution Hill's price has dropped out of it, but like they're like a 5-2 poke for an Arkle this far out, which is fine. It probably is between those two. I don't want to be getting stuck into it. You look at percentages as well, like a final book would be 100% for Cheltenham on the exchanges, give or take a couple of percent. With the bookies, it'll be a lot higher than that. Don't look at the percentage now and say, oh, that's actually not a bad bet for like 100%, because it won't be. This is any horse, and who knows who's actually going to turn up in there. But again, Mr. Policeman's one that's been talked about a few times. There will be horses that drop down a little bit further where people might want to take a bit of a punt, and it makes you think, hang on a minute, why are they looking at those? Champion Hurdle is going to be a boring market just to see the point that's in there. The Mare's Hurdle will be a very boring market again to see what's going in there, but you'll see the ones that might have some interest. Lossiemouth, Gala Marceau, Willie Mullins, why not? National Hunt Chase, you will start to see a few more that are getting interested in there. Stay Away Fay in the past, Paul Nicholls has done and sent horses to a National Hunt Chase. So again, I can see that point there. Getting these little nibbles for horses like Embassy Gardens and Gaelic Warrior, we just don't know definitely where those horses are going, but like stayers surely for Gaelic Warrior. And then when we look at things like the Ballymore as well, Ballymore Supreme and Albert Bartlett will give us advice on markets where everything might be pitching, but we'll leave that on for now because we'll talk about it as we go on to Wednesdays. The odds checker, right? I'm conscious it's been 20 minutes in, right? I'll try and keep it as short as I can, but rather than split it in 2 episodes, let's just keep rolling. Champion Bumper, again, there will be talking horses. There'll be lots of stuff out there. Fat Jockey Forum would be a great place for people to go and have a look because there's lots of information that's shared on there. Not just Cheltenham, horse racing in general, but I've talked about it before. The Fat Jockey Forum, for people that have the time to go in there and look and to discuss and to ask questions, is an honestly unbelievable community for the fact that it's free. So real good on there. Obviously, there's lots of stuff on Twitter as well. I'd be less trustworthy of stuff that's on Twitter, not to be harsh, but I think it gets challenged less. It's much easier to block someone, or if you think someone's giving you a little bit of a dig, and to have your own little minions following you and everyone sort of rimming you because you put a horse up, right? It could happen from my side. It doesn't. But I'm just saying that on a forum like Fat Jockey, it's opinions, it's discussion, it's your mates in the pub. No one's opinion is muted just because someone disagrees with someone else. It's there, it's heard, and it's valid. It's a bit more respected. So obviously do trust it on Twitter, but just remember that will happen as well, right? People are creatures of habit and they'll follow. And also there's like the bigger the following for some stuff, the other way it goes. There are like actual studies on this sort of stuff, isn't there? But like if you, I can't remember the name of the study, but there's something that's been done, right? Where if you put 50 people in a room, 49 of them are actors and one of them is a real person, and then you start doing tests and then you ask them, like, ask a question, and then the other 49 all give the wrong answer. The one person might actually give the wrong answer just because he feels like, well, if everyone else is saying it, it must be true. And that's where it gets difficult. You've got to just better trust yourself. But I'm waffling into a little tangent there. But yeah, champion bumper type ones will be whisper type horses. Leave it for a bit. Like, how long does it take for a Dream to Share to come out for something to see? Ballymore, again, I already touched on a few of these horses. It's a rate. We don't really know everything's going right, do we? So let's just leave it as it is. Dynar Esos, 14-1 for a Ballymore. Brown Advisory Novices Chase is a real interesting market, but it is every year, isn't it? Look where Monkfish was 10-1 at the start of the season when it was fairly sure he'd be going there. We don't even know what types of horses are going to be dotted about, do we? Blazing Cow's an interesting one for the pure fact that here he's 20s. I looked at him on the exchange earlier, only because I remember the Leona thing about the value. The value bet is Blazing Cow, but he wasn't coming to this race, was he? But he skipped his fences. I don't know what's going on with him, but I just know a lot of you guys out there were big fans of him. So like, it's not a surprise to see people thinking, do you know what? I'm going to stick a couple of quid on him just for the sake of a bet. But yeah, I have no strong opinion of that race right now. I'll be interested to see who comes out. I don't know. I don't really trust Gaelic Warrior for any race chance. If he goes over fence, it doesn't really worry. I don't know. Say worry me. It doesn't really entertain me. Champion Chase can be a fantastic race, right? El Fabiolo and Energamin can be split up across the season. There's plenty of races on to do that. Who knows? They may even sell El Fabiolo to Tingle Creek. Imagine that taking on John Bon again. John Bon will remain at 2 miles, won't he? Until he doesn't need to be. Very much Nicky Henderson. You look at Alto, look at Shishkin. He only steps up in that Ascot Chase race, and I don't know if he'll do that with John Bon. I don't know, everyone's talking about him being like the Ryanair horse. He needs the middle trip, but talk about horses making mistakes right in the past. I got a lot of abuse for like Envoy Lamb when I was saying, how can you crab a horse for jumping perfectly? I'm not crabbing the horse. You want to see a horse make a mistake. Think about El Fabiolo, right? I think it was maybe even his Chase debut, but he battered a load of fences, right? They learn. Look at John Bon's performance from Cheltenham, where he made a few mistakes and how good he was at Sandown, right? That is the sign of a horse that's improved, that's a little bit less fearful. The same as even with like humans, anybody that's like a sentient being that like can sense those things around them. If you're scared of something, and not to say that you're scared, but I don't know, if something happens, let's just say you're a kid, you're climbing trees, you're fine. One day you fall out of a tree, right? it's only going to make you a better tree climber for next time. Like, you have less fear, all that sort of stuff. Of course, you could have a really bad something and it could really like fracture you forever. But I just mean, like, novices need to make a mistake, because we want to see what they're going to do with it after. We want to see what they're going to do in the race, and then it will be character building for them in the future. So John Bonds will have improved for the Cheltenham run more than El Fabiolo, I think, in terms of jumping. Wouldn't be a complete write-off that he ends up as a champion chaser, but who knows? Everyone's already flag bearing him as the next Fakir Dudery. I got abused for saying Fakir Dudery is like the grade 1.5 horse. John Bond might end up being something like that, but like, who knows, right? It's like, for me, as it stands at the moment, I would say that he should be trained as a champion chaser. Goes and wins Tingle Creeks, all those sorts of things. Like, let him go and do it. See how the season goes on. It's gonna be like potentially a really, really good renewal this year. Eberstone just wasn't really that, was he? I kept taking him on, kept trying to swerve away from him, but again, like a bit of a price. And Energamine to be 100 to 30, considering how well he was, like, after the Cheltenham incident with the white fence and that sort of stuff. Like, he's a proper horse, so established and proven. And a lot of this El Fabiolo John Bond stuff, and it's not, because there's a bit more substitute, but it is them two backing up each other's form. So, well, great market, I think, as the season goes on. As it stands, it sat where it is. And the only thing, gun to head, if someone said, if you want to have a bet, I would be tempted to back Energamine, but it's probably the wrong bet. So it's not advice, right? Cross country, we leave that till later, but that works the boy anyway. But then Galvin's supposed to be getting better, but just leave that alone, and we'd leave a grand annual, right? So we will move on to Thursday. I'll quickly just tip through the rest of the ones on here. So, like, if we look at the champion chase, for example, where the money's sat in there, El Fabiolo, there's not, like, there isn't chunks of it, right? But there has been 17,000 match. It's just like these little bits here. Like, the money behind John Bond, I don't disagree with. Whether he's going to go and win it or not is a different story. But yeah, it's interesting all this area. But keep an eye on those things. It gives us an idea of what stuff might be going on with it. We're already on to Thursday. We're already on to the Turners. I know Jake Price is really keen on in the pocket for the Turners. I liked the horse. I thought he'd step up in trip. I think they ran him at 2-1 again at Aintree, didn't they? Henry de Bromedy won. I quite like the horse. I don't know. And again, in there, you got Facile Vega like there for Turners. I don't know why he would be stepping up just yet. Blazing Carl's in there as well. You think the Blazing Carl shook like half the price for Turners than he is for an RSA, when he looked like he was the stale type horse, didn't he? I don't know. It feels a bit soft to switch stuff. But we don't really know what's going on in that particular race, do we? We know that Empere Pass isn't going there. Probably Facile Vega won't go there. Constitution Hill definitely not going there. Blazing Cal might not. In the pocket, you see at those sorts of prices why he would be the one. I feel like he's the one, even though we know he's not good enough to be the selection type horse. So I know lots of horses will need to progress, but I don't know. It's hard to really see, right, if Marine Nationale starts mopping up and actually gives Facile Vega a beat in him not going there. And then if someone said to me now, Facile Vega versus in the pocket, almost at any distance, Facile Vega's better. So lukewarm, but I can see why people are doing it. And again, if I was AntePost punting, I would be building some in the pocket money in there. Interesting if we look on here, to be fair, like, he's not a massively bigger price on here than he is with the bookies. So if you still can get some cash outs in there, it is interesting. Good Lad is an interesting one because he didn't really do his running at Cheltenham as well as he could. Maybe could be one that goes in there, but again, I feel a bit substandard. Stairs Hurdle, probably Gaelic Warrior does go here, but how is he a 5-1 poke? He jumps right so bad. Oh, he's gonna. It'll always just annoy me. He's one of these horses that until he retires, will just be fuming about that Fred Winter because he was an absolute shoe and he should have won. And now does he get beat type stuff? So you feel like at some point he might go and win. But let's look at this. Gaelic Warrior going to come in. Let's just say that. Impero Pass won't. Vauban won't. Tiapu, I thought was pretty good last year. 6-year-old last year, I believe. Only going to improve for that run last year. I know potentially we might need the softer ground, but from this point, he's a bit too big a price. Classical Dream, I was on last year, wouldn't I? And then he went and won at Punchestown. So again, I like him, but maybe he's a bit too old, doesn't really necessarily tick the boxes. Don't think Marie's Rock's trustworthy at all to be having a look at anything. And like, honestly, how can Side de Burley actually do anything? So in a market like that, a bit of a mixed market, T-Up, who I think would be the safest, solidest potential look at a selection, because I thought he ran pretty well last year to come second and then get demoted. Mayor's Novice Hurdle, we're going to talk about her again, right? Dysart Enos, the bumper form, right? That market raiser one. We remember when Panic Attack won, went to Pipe, didn't it? it's like I'm not being rude to those. Like, she's clearly very good, and we don't know how good a mare's novice is going to be, right? But at the beginning of the season, if you get a Willie Mullins mare that's 8-1 for the mare's novice, it's probably too short. And no disrespect to Fergal O'Brien, but he hasn't trained a Cheltenham Festival winner. Dysart Enos is a very, very impressive winner at Aintree. Let's not take that away, right? Does look like a very serious prospect, but that sort of price is revolting this far out for a mare's novice hurdle. I'll be confident enough to say now, right? Even if it's just British form that ties in there, you can have some real good British ones. We had it when Epatante and Honeysuckle ran against each other, where you still getting 7-2, 4-1 about these horses on the week. I'll put it to you now that Dysart Enos will go. If she runs at Cheltenham, don't forget they avoided Cheltenham with her. They run her on Pancake Flat racecourse. I think it's maybe Huntingdon, Market Raisin, and Aintree. Like, they're not Cheltenham-y type horses. No doubt he'll run her there, but she will be at least that price, if not bigger, come the day. So what is the point in backing her AntePost? That's almost like rant over stuff. The one that's interesting in there is the one that was favourite at Aintree. The JP Hurst there, Jolie Coeur-Elan, right? Sent off favourite, first run for Willie Mullins after coming from France. Didn't go that well, which Aintree wasn't terrible, but was backed. It's Willie Mullins, wasn't it? More of the fancy. Off the back of that Aintree form, you'd be mad to say that this horse could go and beat Dysart Enos. But at the end of the day, that was the first run for Willie. They just shoved her in a bumper. She potentially could improve, and obviously there was a bit of money behind it, so there's like some, I don't know, some potential resemblance of like substance that could be in there. That would be more the type of one that I'd be semi-tempted to think, right, let's see when she gets entered for a race. Let's see if we can have a little bit of a look to see what sort of price she might end up being when she goes out on like her first run. But again, I don't know comments, news, or any of that sort of stuff on there, but shocking, right? Again, we're talking too much about a mare's novice hurdle. Leave the race alone for a while. Just wait till you get like your Lorenas or your Liminies or Let's Dances turn up. Pile into them at the back end of the season, right? Kimmy or not even worth looking at barely when it comes to the week anyway. Friday, we're going quite quick. I don't know why I keep looking at my watch. I don't even know how long we're going for. Triumph, again, we'll be talking horses. There will be some French breds that are coming out. The Lossiemouth was mentioned last season. Again, Lossiemouth was a bettable price on the day, given the form and substance we saw after it, was a bettable price in the season as time was passing on. So, yes, we want to get on at top price, but it doesn't matter. I'll have lots of bets, right, on stuff where I'm not actually in at the top end, and it used to kill me. I used to be such a stubborn twat, is the only way to say it, where if I'd like the worst ever one was Valtor when I backed the Tullow Tank. It makes me feel sick to talk about it out loud. But they ran in Ireland I don't even remember what the race was, but Tullow Tank was favourite for the Supreme at the time. Valtor was 12-1. I was back in the point then where I didn't really like backing multiple horses. I didn't back Valtor at 12-1, even though I fancied Valtor a bit in the Irish race. The rest is history, right? Went off at 9-2, so I could still get in, but I didn't, right? So I missed the 12-1. I was annoyed at myself with that. And then I didn't steam into him. I had him in a double with Forheen. It was a special boosted one. I think it was that year. But I missed out, right? I messed up. So it's with those things, like, don't get stubborn. Don't worry about missing the price. Miss the price, who cares? Reevaluate that on the information you got. As it stands, we do not have form for the Triumph hurdle. There will be some French stuff. So if you miss a price, if something comes out and wins, then let it win. Forget the market was even formed. Just don't beat yourself up, and don't just start sticking bets on for the sake of it. It was easier before, right, when you could cash out everything on Bet365. They're restricted with stuff now, right? And even when things win the short on, they'll give you crap cash out. So just like, it's just your money's got to be spent and like spread a little bit further, right? Again, waffling a little bit too much in there. Albert Bartlett would like talked about Ballyburn. I'll put him up on here now on the Betfair exchange. Similar-ish price, right, as he would be for a Ballymore. So he's there 15.5 to back and 17 to lay. Sorry, I say similar price, like half the price for the Ballymore than he is on there. When you look on the AntePost betting, Ballyburn sat in there as a 14-1 poke, and we go on to the Ballymore on here. Sat in there the same, right? A lot of this stuff will be driven by the exchanges, but you get Tully Hill as well, right? 12-1 in there for a Ballymore, and then when you look at here, like 20s poke for an Albert Bartlett. You got like I understand there's like level of form that comes out and there's comments that come out of it, but there are similar types in like a Ballyburn and a Tully Hill. It's bumper form we're looking at. They're going into hurdles. They could both want a trip, and then the price differentials between the two of them is almost just driven by the fact that they've been priced up in one race first. So what I'm trying to get with that is Ballyburn's 14 to 1 for an Albert Bartlett because he's 7 to 1 for a Ballymore. If he was 12 to 1 for a Ballymore now, he might be 20 to 1 for an Albert Bartlett. So you not only are you having to question, is this the race he's going to, and is this the right price he is for the race? You have to think to yourself, well, what's the most likely race that everyone thinks he's going to, and is he the right price in there? Because that, unfortunately, will have a knock-on effect and dictate where they're priced everywhere else. And we know the Albert Bartlett, right, you can get stuck into this one a lot later in the time. So don't worry about it too much. Penhill was one that I looked at for Ballymore and Albert Bartlett. He was a massive price right up to the week of running at Cheltenham as well on there. So I know sometimes their plans might be a bit more obvious, but that's recency bias. It's going to get a lot of you guys whooped in, right? Where you think it's so fucking obvious where everything's going. There are late swoops and plans all the time, and a resurgence of that might come back. So again, just keep your powder dry for a bit. And I don't want to say stop back in horse and multiple races. Do a few like Dreamweaver, do a few doubles, trebles, big things with like the horses in different markets, whatever way you want to do it. But just remember, right, when you are betting them in the wrong races, don't start. You do what you want, boom them for big prices in the opposite race that you backed them in as well. But just remember that you are chopping your odds down, and it's fine. It's all part of the book, and if you make £150, it doesn't really matter where you put your £100. Split it up across to get it, if you know what I mean. But then you want to be splitting it on ones that turn up in the race, so the more chance you give yourself, the bigger percentage, etc., etc. I've flung myself back to Wednesday. Gold Cup's the best one to talk about, I suppose, because Jerry Colomb should have won the Brown Advisory, right? Pace maybe was a bit that got him. Galopin Des Champs was disgustingly impressive at Cheltenham. We know the mark that Gold Cups can leave on them. I don't believe the run at Punchestown. I don't believe Fast or Slow is better than Brave Man's Game or Galopin Des Champs. I try and look at this market and think, well, where would there potentially be the big old bad boy bet? I don't want to put the bet on, but I think Shishkin, we had it with people talk about other horses. Who was the one that came fourth? I don't think it was Fakir. Another horse. Anyway, people talk about this, horses that have like placed in a Supreme that then end up running in a Gold Cup. Like the record of it isn't that bad. Shishkin was filthy at Aintree, right? And obviously, like, it's a different beast when you go to Cheltenham, but like I feel like even some of the runs at Cheltenham are quite good given what the horse has been doing. So he wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility. And I would say that he and Jerry Colomb are almost in the same sort of camp. Jerry Colomb was filthy at Aintree. I don't get me wrong, I think this horse is very, very good. But would you fancy Jerry Colomb and Shishkin in a match? Like, Shishkin is currently the better horse. Again, from trajectories, Jerry Colomb could improve, but then Shishkin could find more at the trip. Galopin Des Champs, we know we are with him. He is the price that he is. Let it go, right? Even if you got like a 4 to 6 in him on the day, if he was that short a price because of form, non-runners, all that sort of stuff, then just smash him then. Like, a Gold Cup market is going to hold up. Mares Chase, Impervious, there's a lot of talk about this horse having an injury. Probably won't be seen until next year. May not even make the racecourse this season. So I don't know 100% how accurate that is. And the reason I say I don't know how accurate it is, I don't know when she might come back. All I know is I've been told by multiple people that she has suffered a setback and she won't be seen early in the season. That always tends to make me worry. So we'll just have to see what goes on in there. You try and look at it and think, oh, is there another bet that you could find in the race? If we think that Impervious isn't going to run, where is the bet that you want to start looking at? But it's questionable in terms of trips and all that sort of stuff in there. So again, it's a race to leave alone, but just wanted to get that voiced and out here. Right, I'm going to wrap this up now because, well, we know I like to waffle, and I feel like that's an ample amount of waffling. I'm going to get this published Sunday, so let's go straight up today. Tomorrow I'm doing Ranting Racing with Jamie. I'm going to try and keep a regular list of things that I'll do, try and keep it consistent so you guys know where I am with anything. Drop me a message on Twitter, drop a comment in here if you need anything. I'll send messages, I'll reply to people as much as I can, and we'll just keep pushing through this season, right? Support everybody else that's doing this stuff. Go like, comment, and subscribe on their things as well. But just listen, you don't need to believe everybody. You don't need to like everybody. Find someone that you not necessarily agree with, because you don't want that, but just someone that, I don't know, you feel like there's a bit more substance in what they're saying, and you can tell where it's coming from the right place. Whether we're right or we're wrong, there will be some charlatans that are out there. There isn't anybody that I want to like call out or say that is that. But while there is a lot of content that goes out there, you get to pick and choose what's voiced at you. So just make sure you're paying attention to the ones that give you like the good vibes or you feel like they're beneficial. So if I'm one of those, then I appreciate that. Thank you. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment if there's anything you want me to do or you disagree with, or you just want to say, hey, Dave. And yeah, I will see you guys all again tomorrow night. Aye, aye.